it all origin was for Between Three Rivers is bring community guests in like yourself, who have an impact on the community of any way. So for you, I mean, I was just at the basketball game, Purdue versus
Notre Dame. Yeah.
And
our game. Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of
that
people.
game. And you know, what's funny is like, honestly, if there would have been odds on the game, we probably would have been favored. As bad as that was, how good our team is this year.
Yeah.
And they did a phenomenal, but that's cool. We can talk some about that and what we've done with the community. So
yeah, man. It's one of those things where we're just sitting around with some guys and gals and in the community, and it's been received well by the community as well. Because people like to hear the stories.
Yeah.
Like to know what's going on. And that's why we're here.
Well, you know, when you first brought this to me, you told me the concept is to bring leaders in this area to a very personal level where our audience can see them, hear them, and listen to their stories and learn more and kind of get to know people like yourself, Jon. So that's really...
And there's been so many times where people come to me and like, I had no idea about that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's really cool. So I'll give you a few pieces that I can go down rabbit holes on.
Love it. Yes, please do.
So first off, like I'm talking a lot, and because I want to I don't want to sink, I want to swim, but NIL is an interesting that a lot of people have name, image, and likeness. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
You aren't.
NIL? Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Okay. Name, image,
and likeness.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
And you can, if you just send me down that rabbit hole, I can talk community and I can give some really good perspective because we've done a sustainable approach. And I was very intentional with how I did that. And so like we did 400 hours of community service with Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers Big Sisters. That'll tie into the Notre Dame game.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so basically our team is getting sponsored by different businesses who want to partner with us for community service. And
where do you begin with that? How does that start for you? I mean,
and
you go to different.
Just send me down that one and we'll talk and ask questions. So that's a cool one that people will be interested in because they got all their perspective. And there's a lot of negative connotations about NIL right now. And I can put a positive spin that supports our city.
Yeah, you don't hear anything positive.
And Chuck is one of our hugest supporters of that.
Wow.
So we can go down that road. That's a good one.
So Chuck Sirak's in on that too. Mm-hmm. That's great. He's been on our show as well.
Yeah. Well, finally we're reaching the apex here with guests. We start with Chuck and then move up to the top with Jon.
Right.
So the other piece that I think can be good. So I've been here 14 years. I think that people undersell this city. I mean, I want to talk about, what screams downtown as you see all the development and stuff like that. So like I'm excited to talk about that. There's a reason I've had opportunities to leave and stayed and like can sell that kind of stuff. Some other stuff I think that's, talking about, you heard me talk about the intentional piece to it, but there's a lot of, and I'll talk about this with the NIL, we've retained our best players. Like we're preseason favorites in our league. We've done this. So we've had our best players. Like my kid in the NBA could have gone anywhere in the country, stayed here. And I can talk about retention. Mm-hmm. I can talk about relationship versus transactional relationships, which is, everybody's trying to maintain their workforce and recruit workforce and stuff like that. As we get into business, I can go into the business side too. I mean, that's what I'm doing.
Excellent.
Well, Jon, let's back up here a second and tell us about you and your wife and your history. And
we live? Are we on the podcast now?
Yeah, I'm sure.
We always are on.
Always recording.
What's great too is that was a great intro to the podcast right there. We're going to use that because you just kind of gave a nutshell.
Right.
And that was great.
Yep. So tell us about what's your story?
So, oh man, we could go on for hours right here. We don't have enough time, but so I'm failed in finance. Okay. And I don't mean that because I out of college, I went to San Francisco, and I worked, for an investment firm. and loved my time there. The markets were booming. It was 96 to 98. Had a great experience. I'm from Atlanta originally. Went to school at Washington Lee in Virginia, and I was an economics major. And next thing you know, I'm working in finance in San Francisco. My company gets bought out. 2 years in, I was living a great life. I mean, we had a ski house with all the guys that I hung out with up in Tahoe. I'm living the high life.
Not
Markets
married
are
at that
good.
point,
Not
right?
married at that
Yeah.
point. My sister was a professor at University of San Francisco. So I had family out there, and I was it was awesome. But I wasn't doing what I loved. And I was living for my weekends, and my company, which was owned by the Prince of Liechtenstein, got bought out by Invesco. Who ironically, the president of Invesco was the father of one of my high school teammates at the time from high school basketball. And I got an opportunity to make a transition in life and have a sabbatical where most people don't at age 24. And so I took my one of the guys that had a cubicle next to me, and we took off to Alaska for 2 months. With our fly rods, our mountain bikes, and our skis, and we just kind of enjoyed life. I mean, how many people? We'd figure out no agenda other than we were going to go to Glacier Bay and go for a week on a kayak. Just exploring Glacier Bay on our own. We would go from mountain town to mountain town. And go up to the bar, and it's amazing what bartenders can tell you what's cool in the town, and we tell you what did. And during that 2 months, I figured, you know what? Now's my chance to figure out what I want to do with my life. And I had a high school coach, Ron Bell, who impacted my life more than anybody other than my mom and dad. And I always thought kind of, hey, maybe I'll be a high school coach. Applied for different coaching jobs when I got back from Alaska. And that was back when you used to actually send resumes. And I got an opportunity to go be a Division III assistant basketball coach for Bob Johnson, whose dad was chief of staff for the Army during Vietnam. Had a picture of his dad on the cover of Time magazine, General Johnson.
Wow.
Bob Johnson was a former Army Ranger who basically gave me a PhD in leadership in those 2 years. And he said, I'm going to kick you out in 2 years. And there were 5 of us out of 7 assistants in a row that went on to be Division I head coaches. Current Virginia Tech head coach Mike Young got his start there. Jimmy Allen at Army. Nathan Davis, who went from Bucknell to New Hampshire. Jamie and Christian, who is at George Washington in the Mount. And myself. So 5 of us in a row went to this really small Division III town and school and ended up being, at the top of our industry, one of 362. And I'd show up at the office some days, and he would just give me a book. It'd be like 300 pages and be like, hey, listen, he lived up on top of the mountain overlooking campus, town of about 500, and he'd say, hey, read this book. We're going to smoke cigars and drink a beer, and we're going to talk about this. Might be politics, might be leadership, might be basketball. And so days, I was his only assistant, so he'd be like, it was more than just coaching basketball. And so that inspired me, and he taught me how to network, and that led me to college at Charleston, then Stetson, then Colgate, and then Fort Wayne.
So that's a good point. I mean, I find that a lot of the good coaches come from the same staff. You got Alabama, you got all these big, whoever, right? Why do you think that is? Is it, like you said, the networking and all these different things that the coach taught you, or what do you think is the major reason?
Well, I think you're learning from who you're coaching under. We all need to have mentors, people that we're going to recognize things in ourselves and steal. I mean, I'm a big time thief. Everything we run, I stole from some program I was in, or I've watched video on, or I've built relationships. I also was impacted with, we created our own fraternity of these coaches that I was working for, and Bob Johnson, he forced me to go visit these guys while I was an assistant coach that were at higher levels, go stay with them, go learn from them, taught me how to network, taught me how to build relationships. And, he never got me a job, but then I end up with John Kress, who's got his name on his court at College of Charleston. And that was a different PhD in organization. And I got to steal stuff from him. And so I think you get impacted by leaders along the way. You build a fraternity that are going to help you get through, the challenges of your job. And so I had this network, or developed this network, that when I run into obstacles, I'm calling guys and they're giving me good ideas of how to overcome different challenges, which I'm seeing the world of college athletics changing, like while I'm in the midst of it. I'd love to talk about NIL and some of the transformation of college sports as well, because I think that can apply to your perspective on what I'm doing now in sports. Everybody's kind of fans of things, but also what you're doing in your business. Because I'll give you an example, like, as NIL has impacted things, people are like, they got all these negative connotations to what's going on, but as you run a business, your markets change, tax law changes. You look at how socially, you probably, I don't know if you guys have a George Costanza wallet, but you probably have a Blockbuster card still in it.
Right.
And, that was 15 years ago. Yeah. And now we went to, then you go to
streaming
then you're on to Redbox.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And they still have a few of those out there. And then you're on to Hulu and Netflix. And so, like, world is constantly changing. How do you evolve with it? And I think back to your question, I've built really good relationships to be able to help impact as the world I'm working in, the sports world I'm working in, is changing, and I'm able to bounce ideas off of and come up with an intentional game plan for where my program is going.
That's perfect. And you can probably go back to those original guys and say, hey, help me.
Yeah, and we're right? Constantly. When I get on the road recruiting, you're in the car 3 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not like, Mike or Matt, who are jumping on their Purdue and their Indiana Jets, to go recruit. I'm in the car for 3-4 hours going to Chicago.
Yeah.
And so I'm dialing my buddies. And we're connecting and we're sharing our issues, what we're going through, and trying to come up with intentional game plans for each other. And so it's been an evolution of our program, with my fraternity of coaches I work with.
So I'm interested too on the origin of this story of like going to Alaska and figuring out, what's next. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm interested on what was that aha moment? Like, you're like, you're sitting there, you're like, well, what do I want to do? Is that?
Yeah, I think what a little bit more of it is I did that because, hey, when's your opportunity to go? Like, I love the outdoors.
Right.
And I love my high school coach, who's arguably the best coach ever to coach in the state of Georgia. And actually my high school that I went to is kind of like my son goes to Bishop Dwenger. They played Moeller this year. And, it's, as I'm talking to all these parents, I'm like, well, I went to Marist in Atlanta, which was in the USA Today back 15 years. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. It was the Sports Illustrated article like 20 years ago. It had the best high school programs in the country. My high school football coach is still there. And they play for a state championship today.
Oh, wow.
And that high school coach has won 480 games. They didn't lose a high school football game during that time. My high school basketball team had 9 college basketball players, 2 NFL guys, and 1 NBA player. That NBA player was the third string point guard behind me. Wow. 2 behind me.
Yeah.
Who played 12 years in the NBA.
So what happened to you?
So I know that's my claim to fame. Well, I decided to coach. It's those who can't teach, right? That's me. But I went to this great high school, like sports school. Hank Aaron was the year before I got there. All the Falcons and the Braves players and stuff and coaches, the Georgia Tech coaches, their kids went to school with me, and we had really good coaching, and it was awesome. And so I grew up in this experience, and my high school basketball coach was also my outdoor ed teacher. He taught me how to fly fish. He taught me how to whitewater kayak. I went backpacking with him. We built this relationship that went on for life.
What I find amazing about it is that all along the way, you had these individuals who came into your life that allowed you to take the next step and get to a different level. And that's pretty amazing.
And I think that's what drove me to this. I had somebody step up, and my parents were very impactful. And there's young men that I coach that maybe don't have some of the support, and I love giving back to those young men as well. But I had tremendous support, but yet my dad was a civil engineer who went to Michigan, met my mom up at Michigan. My mom was a high school teacher, and so they had a different perspective. I get into sports, but they put I go to this school that in Atlanta that has this powerful sports world. And other worlds, Brett Baer went to my high school. He was the president of my class when I was a senior. So we had all these impactful people. I got inspired by these people around me, these teachers. And, Ron Bell put me in this direction, this path, and we became friends. Here he was, 40 years older than me. He's almost my dad's age. And we became best friends when I was in college coaching, constantly impacting me.
Wow. So I have to ask you, was your dad not able to get into Western Michigan? Is that why he went to...
So it's funny. We play Michigan coming up on the 22nd, and I was able to browbeat Dusty May, who didn't want to play us in year one. Didn't know what roster as we're going through the scheduling, and he and I are good friends.
Are you playing up there or here?
We're playing there.
Up there.
We're playing there. And I was able to brag. I said, hey, my dad still lives in Georgia. It's hard to get him up here to my games. He's 82 years old, but I know if we play Michigan, I can twist his arm to get up here, be here for Christmas. So first Christmas I had my dad here in 7-8 years. So thanks, Dusty May.
That's amazing.
He scheduled the game with me to be able to do it. Now, they're much better than I kind of anticipated back. They got 2 7-footers. They're having a great year.
They are having a good season.
But we have a really good team. We're preseason favorites in the Horizon League, which doesn't mean anything other than I got really good players back. I got 6 of my top 7 back this year in a world where kind of the unicorn of mid-major basketball. I'm retaining our players, and I want to give them an opportunity to play against the best. So
what is your record this season?
Let's see. We won last night, beat Eastern Michigan by 23 on the road, had 23s that night, which is a lot.
That is a ton,
for in college basketball. We've done it 4 times now, but not many people do it. We're 3rd in the country in three-point shots made over the last decade. Number 16 in scoring. We scored 99 on the road against those guys. I think that puts us at 8-4.
You scored 99 points last night?
We scored 99 last night.
Wow.
And we can really, really score the basketball.
Yeah.
We're number 16 in scoring over the last decade.
Well,
if you're in Fort Wayne, you haven't come to watch us score the basketball.
That's fun.
Well, we were
That's fun.
we were at that same game, the Notre Dame game, and we
didn't score it that night.
You didn't score that.
No, we didn't. We didn't shoot the ball well. We didn't turn. We're top 5 in the country and not turning the ball over.
Yeah.
We didn't shoot it, and we turned the ball over against Notre Dame. That's a credit to what those guys are doing.
Yeah.
And how do you explain that? What goes through your mind? You think?
Well, do you have kids?
Sorry.
Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids. My kids are grown.
Well, then you're an expert on them, right? When they were 17 to 22, could you depend on them for a lot?
Probably not.
Yeah. No, on their good days, they were really good, right?
Yes.
And when they did all the things that you and your wife had taught them, they were awesome.
My kids might watch this. So my kids were awesome at those.
There we go. Mine too.
They were the best.
No, I mean, honestly, young people. I mean, and we're a team sport. Like, you got to have a synergy, and then you're throwing in another really good coach in there, another really good team program that's building with optimism as we're going in, as well as that was an exhibition game.
Right.
I had different guys on minute limits as we're going through. I was also more of a marketeer that night, as we ended up raising $20,000 for Boys and Girls Club and Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Amazing.
Day.
Yeah. What you did there, I mean, and tell us, how did that all come together for Boys and Girls Club?
How did it start?
Bringing Notre Dame in, and how did that work?
Well, life's about relationships. And what was cool in that regard is we got the game because of my relationship with Micah Shrewsbury, who's the head coach at Notre Dame, who's a Division III player, went to Hanover College, and then was on Matt Painter's staff at I guess he was on Brad Stevens' staff first at Butler, which is where I got to know him. I knew Brad really well. And then was on Matt's staff at Purdue, and we've just maintained this relationship. And in a day and age where nobody wants to go on the road, Tom Crean did it, in 16 when we beat those guys here, and it really helped Fort Wayne. I mean,
I was there for that game.
Impacted when that.
Yeah.
Were you guys either of you at that Indiana?
I have a picture of my brother-in-law who went to IU, and he's sitting right in front of me, and his head is like in his hands. Jake's brother, actually, and I still have that video of when
No,
They
and
beat
that
'em.
doesn't happen a lot.
No,
And that was a credit to Tom Crean, who did an amazing job. I mean, Indiana's ranked number 3 in the country. They come to Fort Wayne to play us. I don't think they knew we'd be as good as we were going to be, and nobody thinks number 3 in the country going to lose to a team. And then and that was really cool for us. And that helps mid-major basketball, or helps basketball, but it hurts mid-major basketball because people don't want to go back.
Right.
And do that. And then we turn around the next year and we beat Indiana by 20 on the road when Archie was a coach there. But so Micah decides he's going to go schedule the game with us to do a charity exhibition, which is what the NCAA rules allow for Division I's to play Division I's. And so we are able to then, 2 groups that we work with, Big Brothers Big Sisters and Boys and Girls Club. We're able to take those charities and raise money on their behalf. And those are 2 groups that we've really targeted, that we've always done work with, but now with the new world of NIL, and maybe this is the time we can kind of dive into this. I'll just take the space.
Right.
We were able to give back to 2 groups that we spent a lot of time with this summer. So I'll go through sort of how this worked out. And so just like I just gave my analogy on, Netflix and Blockbuster, the world of college sports is changing. I mean, the transfer rule changed. You no longer have to sit out. You can transfer and play immediately, which has impacted my world a lot because you're recruiting retention as much as you are recruiting the next guy, like within that year. And now you got the NIL dollars, which we're all watching what's happening as players are doing this. And so, I want to be here. I mean, this is 14th year in Fort Wayne, 11th as a head coach. I've had opportunities to leave. Every time I've gotten a contract extension, all I've said is, hey, get my son through, Dwanger.
Right.
That was 2027. I said, get my daughter. That's 2030. So I got an 8-year contract to work on retention. Not many college coaches will be able to brag that their kids have had the opportunity to go to the same middle school. Like my daughter was born here. My son came here at 2 years old and have gone, to the same elementary school, middle school, high school. I mean, that's pretty cool.
I think
Like
it's
a regular
impressive.
kid.
Yeah, it's impressive for you too, because you're doing it for your kids as well, because they don't have to go travel around with dad either. You found a home and you're letting them
I had
grow
that
it.
opportunity. I was raised that, but not a lot of college coaches, and they're chasing one thing, and I'm chasing happiness. And that's where, I'll talk about Fort Wayne. I love Fort Wayne. There's a reason that I've stayed, and our program has grown with my love for Fort Wayne, and the community has really supported us and taken us to that next level. And that's a perfect, sort of connection here where NIL kind of changed our world. And I was worried about how I was going to dive in to the NIL world, name, image, and likeness, and paying players, and where that would work, and we've developed our funding as a young Division I program along my time here, and we've always fundraised in the community through our casino night at Fort Wayne Country Club. That's raised a lot of money to kind of help us compete with people that have bigger budgets, and then all of a sudden we've got to add in more funding. And I was very slow to operate, and sometimes being intentional can be good and bad, but I love how it's turned out. And so the first thing I did was our players 3 years ago could not go to breakfast, lunch, or dinner with a season's ticket holder and have them buy them that Starbucks or lunch or dinner and talk about what my players wanted to do after college basketball. It's crazy.
Right.
So we were behind. The NCAA's rules were separating, donors, boosters with college athletes. And there were reasons. You got the gambling and the access there, or the brown bag everybody talked about of the cash, giving them to come play for university. So there were all these reasons, but we weren't catching up. And so that's where these lawsuits and things happen. And now we're trying to figure it out. Well, I figured out, and I believe in it, and our way is how low major, mid-major basketball is going to survive and prosper. And the high majors are going to look at our model, and they're going to be like, all right, this is how we sell this, and this is how we're sustainable, because, there's crazy money going on now, and that's going to run out because, the rich guy buying the player, we're all imperfect with our evaluations of players. The NFL is imperfect with their evaluation. How many number one draft picks have just blown it on that? Right. So how do you figure out how to invest in things that are going to make sense long term? And so every one of my players has a community mentor. And that community mentor is a businessman or woman that once a month eats breakfast, lunch, or dinner with them, and they bring one more person from our city to meet with them. So now my players are networking
That's amazing.
with the city.
That's
and
awesome.
it's something that I've always envisioned,
Right.
but we're doing it on steroids now, and it's sink or swim because we're attaching that with that world. And then they're walking out of here with 8 to 12 networked things.
Yeah,
And
they're
so
only
now,
going to play basketball for 4 years. What's
Right.
right? Yeah.
now I got 24 guys that have signed pro contracts since they've left in my 14 years here.
That's really good too.
So
Yeah.
that's great, but they're going overseas, or maybe Jon Coffman goes plays for the NBA, but their careers are going to end. They're going to have this life after basketball. So I'm trying to help them get the second job. The job where they're being served the coffee, not serving the coffee. How do they skip that first job? And so I'm trying to network them and leverage their platform of college basketball to network to get that job in Fort Wayne, where we're a perfect size.
Well, that's my question, John. So these connections that you're helping the players make, have you seen a relatively good-sized number of the players sticking around after school and working in Fort Wayne and
So-
using these connections to
Absolutely
build their future?
I'm seeing that, and some of them it's working in real time. Some of those relationships that I've developed. I mean, it's one that it takes time to build it, and a lot of my guys are still playing professionally. And so they're coming back to work out with my guys in the summer. They're going out to eat with their community mentors and people that they built relationships with through our fundraising stuff that we did. And then they're prepared for when their pro careers are done to then use these. But Isaiah McCray, he was on my first recruiting class. He was a young man that signed with me when I was assistant at Colgate, came here because of my relationship with his mom and himself, and played for us. And then he got a job with my next door neighbor at Carlex right after college, and skipped the first job and did great, and did that for 4 to 5 years. And it wasn't until his dad got sick in Baltimore that he ended up going back and skipped 3 or 4 jobs and is crushing it in a similar industry outside of Baltimore now, but was able to invest in our city for those 5 years and will eventually be back. I mean, Jon Coffman is investing in our city right now as an NBA player, and he's investing in our city actually financially as he's trying to kind of work through some of the relationships he built to use his money to now impact our city as well.
And what is he doing? Can you talk about that?
I'd rather not. I'll leave that. That's his private business as he's doing. But he's been targeting some of our donors to, hey, where are some emerging markets where he's from Chicago and his dollar is going to be better spent here than there.
Well, you just made an interesting point too. It's like you're not growing your resumes per se. You're actually shrinking your resume. You're having that really good job out front, out of the gates, and then you're having maybe another one or none because you're just exposed to what you're supposed to be exposed to.
Oftentimes it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And that's one of my sales with our Purdue degree, that you're taking the Fort Wayne Purdue degree along with West Lafayette. Now you're joining a club. I mean, it's a prestigious club that you're networked with. So now when you get on LinkedIn, which Anthony Giuliano works with our guys, we do 3 seminars of networking that he from Asher Agency.
Right.
He teaches our guys how to network, gets them set up on LinkedIn, and teaches them all these skills. So when they go with their community mentors and they're meeting with a new person coming in, they have the skill set to utilize that network.
That's legit. That's
and
amazing.
then the network, now they're using LinkedIn and using that Purdue link on that to now connect with that world. But then they're also using, the people that come back here, and I'm going to go upstairs here at Sweetwater. I'm going to meet with Thad Tegmeyer, who is really impactful at Sweetwater, and talk to him. And he's on our board for Dons for Fort Wayne. That's our NIL collective. He's also a community mentor. We're going to talk about some of those things that he's doing. So let me
Should we just bring him in and talk to him?
We should. He's awesome. I mean, he's all bought into our stuff.
So it is interesting because you got a guy that says you just shot 23s.
Maybe 20. We took 39. We weren't perfect.
All right. Well, so this guy shoots 10 and he makes 10, whatever, and he probably gets some offers to transfer. But now with all these things in place, he's going to rethink it. And you'd be like, well, right?
So we're trying to shrink the margins.
Yeah.
I mean, and that goes back to even before NIL was a piece. we had Max Landis and Jon Coffman. So Max Landis was a player of the year in our league. And he finished up, he sat out a year and got his master's degree with us, stayed. Well, that grad transfer, you could transfer and go anywhere in the country. Well, he was illegally recruited and people were trying to take him. Well, he ends up, and he's my size, maybe a little touch longer, shorter arms, smaller hands, not NBA, body physique, but he could shoot the lights out of the ball.
Right.
Was second in the country in 3-point field goal percentage, and makes his senior year, and he gets 4 NBA workouts. He's crushing it overseas as player of the year in our league. Stays. Okay, because of our style of play, because of relationships in our city, and stays because of our style of play. Well, then he was a senior on a team that won our league with Jon Coffman, who's now playing for the Memphis Grizzlies, was a freshman. So he pays it for it. And then Jon, going into his senior year, again, could have grad transferred. NIL was not around, but Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, they're all recruiting him illegally to transfer and go and play on, we're Division I, but that highest level. But we test the waters with the NBA. We talk to 17 different GMs who say, don't go be a rented player.
Right.
Stay, style of play, you're on the NBA radar. They know you. You've already had all these pros. You're known overseas. Stay where they're investing in you, and we're gonna track you. Tell coach, and I'm on the calls. Go schedule heavy. I schedule UCLA to open up against Alfred. Then we go to that same week we play Dayton, who's top 25. We play Ohio State, who's in the top 25, and we're gonna chase you all year. And Jon signs in the NBA, and he's crushing it. Just signed a 3-year, $30 million contract extension.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And so those guys are coming back, and they're telling the true story of, hey, if basketball is your true passion and you want to play at the highest level, stay. Well, that impacts then Jared Godfrey, who's from Atlanta, came up here because of our engineering degree, ends up breaking Jon's all-time scoring record, loves Fort Wayne, and he stays. And this is the first year of NIL. He had 9 Power 5 offers of 6 digits to leave, and came back for nothing because he loved our city so much. And it was a 30-minute conversation with he and his mom, and they were into more than just basketball and the jobs afterwards. He comes back every summer, trains with us. He's crushing it overseas right now. Had some chances, got invited to Clippers training camp, but his agent suggested, hey, let's go a different route to the NBA and make money on the front end. Wasn't guaranteed. Well, then that's paid to my guys this year. I had 6 of my top 7 come back. Yeah. My only guy who didn't, he's playing overseas. He graduated. And so what we did is we dove into the NIL. We took the community mentor piece, and then we stacked that with where's the value of our players to our community. There's community pride is number one, and that's no different. I mean, most of you guys you're either Purdue or Notre Dame or Michigan fans or IU fans, IU fans right now, right? Football fans, right? But so that's where, obviously we're probably second fiddle to that, but there's a pride in our city. I mean, when we beat Indiana and 485 million people saw it on national TV, like that was cool. But that's not necessarily sustainable, and your wins and losses were everybody's second or third team that they love. All right. So the other piece is what can our young men do in the city? Well, community mentors. And that's where, I think we've really impacted and we got, Chuck Sark on board. Is he likes basketball, but he's a music guy. He likes our city. That's what he really loves. Right. And he saw what we were doing, and we've built a relationship over the years. He was at our 20-point win at Indiana, and is more into the fact that what we're doing with the Boys and Girls Club than what we're doing on the floor. And so what I've sold to our community is we're already doing this community service, but let me dive in and do more intense programming, because now we're going to pay our players stipends in NIL, and now businesses are investing to do community service on their behalf. So now let's say, a business says, hey, I want to invest in your organization to do NIL on behalf of this, and you're working with Boys and Girls Club or Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or Renaissance YMCA, and our team did 400 hours this offseason working with young people in our city.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
Jon, for our audience and me, and possibly you too, if I'm a player and I'm on your team, how does this NIL process unfold with these kids? Is it purely the university paying them, or is there they have an agent and now they've got sponsors? How does it work?
Well, and that could be a 3-hour session on that. So the simplest way, you're going to hear the words collectives, which is essentially, that's what Dons for Fort Wayne. So if you go to www.donsforfortwayne.com, that's Purdue Fort Wayne's our basketball program's collective. It's a booster club.
Yeah.
That's a third party resource that is creating some of these relationships and basically collecting money. And then there, as a group, the board of directors of this group are digesting how it's either true marketing pieces, like maybe they like Jalen Jackson, who's a local product here, who's our leading scorer, who's crushing it. Just scored his 1000th point last night in the Eastern Michigan game, and he's got a huge social media following. Played at Carroll, then went to Northrop when his mom took the assistant principal job there and coached there, and transferred back. And so he's a situation where, maybe there's true, hey, we want to get to Jalen Jackson's, social media outlet. So there's true NIL there, and we connect them. Or it's just, hey, this is a good player. He's impacting our city. We want to win. We love what he's doing off court with the Boys and Girls Club. And so they create the stipends and the contracts with the players. So that's a collective. That's what most of these things you're seeing. 99% of it is through different universities, or their boosters have come up with a collective. Then you have, maybe there's a business in the city that says, hey, we want to connect with this player because he really affects us and it can help our marketing, or a restaurant or something like this.
Yeah. So the player potentially could be kind of a spokesperson for some local company and get paid for that service.
Yes. And that's where, we have a young man who has a situation with a car deal in our city. And that's through the relationship. I mean, he's the hardest playing player in college basketball as his marketing space. And so he's got an F-150.
So you're a proponent of the NIL process.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Now, what I do love is I have no problem. Like, what our guys are doing, people have no idea. I mean, they're in the gym 3-4 hours a day.
Right.
All right. Every day. And they're here all summer long. We're putting in 8 to 10 weeks in the summer. All right. They've now allowed us as coaches access to train them in summer. They're here all summer long. They're here. I mean, basketballs and the footballs are here nonstop.
And it wasn't always the case.
It was not always the case. We had to leave them alone during the summer. They could work out with a strength coach, but like, we have what the NCAA says are hours we can use, but then with our strength coach, with our GAs, things like that, it's unlimited hours. I mean, and then you add, what they're actually doing and the social media access that people have. I mean, they're pros. They've been pros with that side of it. Now, what I'm a big proponent of is that I still am about the relationship side of it. Mm-hmm. I recruit our players through relationships. All right. And so we've tiered ours so that, it's not about buying a player. As soon as you're starting a relationship transactionally, they're going to be transactional the entire time through. And so there's some people, and at some levels, probably at the IUs and the Purdues and stuff like that, they're probably having to do some transactional relationships, which I don't have to do yet at my level. And so we're telling, hey, this is what our all league players are doing and getting. And like, we see you growing into that space.
Yeah.
And actually, I worked with Matt Painter, who's doing it similar to how we're doing it. And I've really liked that, to where, hey, there's growth within your organization. But then the other side of it is, yes, there are the businesses that are doing that, and there are avenues for that. But most of what you're seeing out there on the social media is what the booster clubs are doing.
Yeah. So I got 2 questions for you. One, on average, what somebody would kind of make in a year, a player make in a year. And then the second question is it impacted their performance at all, having these distractions?
Well, we're still in the midst of seeing what that happens, because it wasn't until year 3. And my players that I recruited back, I was recruiting them back saying, hey, believe in me. I'm going to work my tail off to make this new world work for you.
Right.
And that this is our first year that we're actually doing it. So we're watching this in real time evolve. And so there are some of those impacts.
Because I think of like the social media, like you have one of your players with a big following and everything. And I'm like, well, they got to keep up on their content to keep the following and all that. And, you know,
it's a lot. It's a lot. And so, you know, they're working really, really hard on that side. Most of the guys that I'm recruiting, though, they love basketball. They want to play at the highest level. That's why they're here. Good. Our style of play. I mean, we're number 16 in scoring over the last decade. Like, they know they can score points here. We've got 24 pros and submissions. They want that piece. And we're creating these stipends where, you know, I'm into paying players. I'm not into buying players. It's about the relationship base. We're still doing all of that. Mm-hmm. The parents have bought in. My life skills programming in my summer, that's helped me retain players. I mean, we do ballroom dancing. We do 3 golf lessons with our guys. We're doing training with, Anthony Giuliano at Asher Agencies doing his networking skill set with them. I have financial planners coming in, working with how do they manage the NIL piece to it with the money. They now have to pay taxes. We getting our guys are investing. I mean, we got guys with,
nice.
Have mutual funds. And I mean, you talk about the power of compounding interest. And now guys are really putting money away now. I mean, they're going to be millionaires because of what they're doing. Not now. I'm not making them millionaires, but I'm giving them the education,
the foundation for it,
and some small NIL that's allowing them. And to answer your question, I'll never tell you what our guys are making. Because I'm just setting up the market to where somebody's going to come and try and buy our guys because we have really good players.
Good. Yeah. Well, so, you know, I think about it too, and it's like, you know, when I went to college, it was 4 years, and you just go to the classes and everything like that. But when you have an extra opportunity to have an extra, you know, go to a course or something like that, you never went to it because you were just kind of stuck in your mode of going to courses.
Yep.
So you give them the opportunity of like learning more than just what they know.
Well, and so that goes to how I identify the right people for our organization, which I think is good for any business. Okay. So in my world, and now I've been here 11 years and I've built up, you know, all these people that I'm really proud of. They've gone on and become great professional basketball players or pros in life with their jobs. And I have all these stories. So all around our offices, you have pictures everywhere. So you come on a recruiting visit and parents get to see the passion of me talking about Max Landis or Big Steve Forbes or Louis Jacobo or John Conchar, and I tell their story. Well, the story is not exactly what these parents are gonna, you know, they see with their kids, but they're hearing different parts of them, and they hear the passion. They see my eyes light up talking about these young people, and they're like, "Man, all right, coach is passionate about his young people, and he wants to be here." And I talk about, "Hey, why I'm still here? You know, hey, I want to be here." You know, a lot of people, they sign up for a program, their coach is gone 2 years later. You know, they all right, well, hey, his daughter's a 2030. You know, like, hey, we got him for, you know, that kind of thing. They love that I want to be a part of Fort Wayne. Well, then the other piece is what I sell them on. And I sell them on, hey, ballroom dancing, dining etiquette. You know, Karen Hickman teaching, you know, she got taught dining etiquette. So when Barbara Bush was coming here to speak to the city 20 years ago, and now she's doing it every year with my basketball players. And so now they've learned the skill of, you know, 4 forks out there. And it helps them on the basketball court because getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. Yep. Like the more skills you learn, the more things you get exposed to, the more confidence you have. But then also helping them get a job. Like a lot of interviews are done over dinner or lunch. And so like to have the right etiquette so you're comfortable, you get to be yourself, but then also you don't, you know, do the wrong thing that maybe
you don't have to be scared.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you could throw somebody off as you do that. So what's happening now are the moms and dads that are coming on those visits, the ones that buy into what I'm selling, they end up showing up here and being a part of our program. Yeah. And they end up staying. Yeah. And so I no longer am selling what I think they want to hear and trying to steer my sales pitch to just them. Now, I'm a smart salesman. I'm going to steer things enough to where, hey, if they like this, like we just signed a point guard out of Ohio, and he loves music. He wants to, he likes rap. He already is producing some. Nice. He does some lyrics and stuff. Well, when I talk to him about Chuck Surak's
even coming
new school
here, right?
on campus.
It's on campus now.
He's poured a ton of money
Sweet.
into Purdue Fort Wayne's music technology school, which has been here on Sweetwater's campus, but now we're building a new building on our campus. And,
Amazing.
Chuck is talking about, hey, he wants our city to be top 10 in the country of music cities. And I get to sell this to this kid. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
So now I get to the people, and so I'm retaining players because I'm selling who we are, and they know who we are. And the ones that are buying in, and the ones that aren't, that's fine. They can go elsewhere.
Yeah. I love
There's
it.
a lot of good players. Like, if you can't shoot it, like I tell my young assistants, hey, this is where we are. We're intentional. We're going to always shoot the three. And they'll come to me and they'll be like, hey, this is a good player. Got to recruit him. And I'll be like, how's he shoot the ball? And I'm like, if they start to dance there, I say, hey, he'll be a good player for somebody else. Mm-hmm. All right. And so you got to figure out what fits you so that you can be intentional. And that's what fits me. And so now we're getting the right people that fit our style of play, that fit our culture, and they're staying and they're happy because of it.
I don't mean to spoil the party, but we have to kind of wrap it up here fairly quickly. Jon, we need to have you come back because I think we've just scratched the surface of all the things you're doing and all the great stuff that you're doing for your players and the students. And it's really, really exciting. But I do have this question, though. As you look forward, you must be really, really optimistic about the possibilities for your team. With all these things in place and all the activities you've got going on with these kids, you must be very, very positive on the future.
Well, I am. And I'm positive because of the city of Fort Wayne, because I've had this dream of what we can do here at this university and with our program, and the city, new people keep popping up and helping us along the way. James Kahn, I hadn't met until this fall, and he owns Baker Street, Hoppy Gnome, and Proximo. And I tell him our story, and now my players get to eat at the top restaurants in the city. And it's all because it's not about what we can do for him, but he has a story about who helped him along the way to get his businesses started. And he loves philanthropy, and he wants to give back to our players and help boost what our vision is, and he loves what we're doing at Big Brothers Big Sisters and Boys and Girls Club. Well, then the other piece to it is that
he loves the city too.
He loves the city.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And people that love the city, like, they're going to love what I'm talking about. Like when I spoke at Rotary last week, and I'm driving downtown and I barked at them about the same thing. I passed 4 cranes on my way to the baseball stadium.
Right.
And I tell this group, I say, hey, cranes, I love them.
Yeah.
Like, they scream Purdue Fort Wayne. All right. And what I mean by that is I love all the city, what's happening in our city, all the development. Like, downtown is booming right now. And my wife gets to broadcast. She's a college softball coach at Purdue Fort Wayne. And she broadcasts with the Tin Caps with John Nolan and kind of has some fun. My kids have grown up down at the field, running around the field since they were 5-6 years old, watching all this downtown development and this safe city and all its cool stuff. Well, we've watched downtown develop. Well, now all these cranes, like, everybody talks to me about, hey, we don't have enough workers or workforce, and coming off of COVID, can't find enough people to work. Well, guess what? In our city, the largest university in the region is right here in Fort Wayne.
Right.
It screams, invest in our university, invest in Purdue Fort Wayne. All right. If we want our city to grow with the investment they're pouring into it to match up with all the cranes, all that stuff, you better invest in our university. And we're the marketing brand, arm of our university, our basketball. And that's what people are buying into. Hey, how do we make it maybe a sexy investment?
Right.
Let's go to the NCAA tournament. Let's keep winning like coaches won and that stuff. But really, it's about, how do you help our city? And Purdue Fort Wayne, like, we need the city support. And I tell you what, people are now coming to our university, all right, from outside of our region. And I've always found that. All right, my best players, now Jalen Jackson, Bryson Scott, those are 2 local products that have crushed it
Right.
at Purdue Fort Wayne, who are from Fort Wayne. All right, but I've had so much success outside of our region recruiting players because there's no misconceptions or preconceptions. All right, I came to Fort Wayne without any misconceptions, preconceptions. This city rocks. All right, and there's so many people that have grown up here who poor mouth it or, hey, it's not this. Listen, I grew up in Atlanta. I coached at college at Charleston. Charleston, South Carolina is a cool place. My first job was in San Francisco. A lot of people vacation in San Francisco. All right, my wife was coaching at UCF. I was coaching at Stetson down in the Orlando area, down by the beach down there when I was at Stetson. Like, I've lived in great areas. Fort Wayne is awesome. We love it. And it's only getting better. And if we invest in our university in the city, like, it's going to get even better quicker. Yeah. So there's my promo. Chancellor, Elson Balmer.
That was amazing.
I gave our promo right
That was
there.
amazing. And I wanted to say this. You are Fort Wayne, like, through and through. I was born here and everything. And you're right. It's about the people here. And, you scream Fort Wayne, and that's what we do. We're good people and everything. And the other cool thing I think about you is you're selling the dream. You're not selling basketball. Yes, they love basketball already. What is that next thing? What is that thing after the finances that you thought of? What is that next thing? And I think that's really cool for you to teach your players.
So one of our core values is interdependence. And we teach our players how they can make every decision in life through our core values, all right, and how they can apply those things to make decisions. Well, life doesn't make sense without interdependence. And that's where in our city, like our university, our program, how can we help the city? And then the city comes back and helps. And so many times people always have their hands out. And yes, we need the city's support to be ultimately successful. But I think what we don't ask enough is how can we help you? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've tried to do in my 14 years here and 11 as a head coach, is constantly be out in the community and say, hey, how can we help you? And at our casino night 2 years ago, we had 500 people there. It started with 75 people at Fort Wayne Country Club. Now we're up to 500 people 10 years later. All right. And it's been the lifeblood fundraiser of our program. All right. First Saturday in November every year. And 2 years ago, I did phone text roulette. So we had 500 people. I had everybody pull out their phones. I said, I want you to type in my cell number. Well, back up. I had people raise their hands. Who's got Mike Woodson's cell? A couple people raise their hand. Who's got Matt Painter's cell? A couple people raise their hands. And I said, here's how I differentiate myself. All right, access. You have access to a Division I program and what we can bring to this city, which is Notre Dame coming to play in our city, which is Indiana coming to play for our city, which is, 485 million people hearing Fort Wayne when you beat Indiana on national TV. All right, so all those things, all right, you get access to, but access to me. And so I said, I want twofold. You're going to type in, you're going to send me a text. You're going to have my cell number now. Okay. And then I expect you to tell me a group in the city that I can help, whether it's coming to a game or I can have a player come talk to them, youth program, youth group, how they can mentor, how I can help you. Okay. And that's where I talked about, hey, here's our interdependence. All right, number 50 is going to win. I had a prize for them. They got to win a John Conchar game-worn jersey. All right, and this is 10 years later, 7 years later.
Right.
All right, but here's the trick, is that we couldn't get a winner with number 50 texting me unless there were 49 people that texted me before that person. And so I also promised them that I was going to text every one of them back. I had 375 texts. After I gave them the number, I said, 1, 2, 3, send. And I promised them within 2 weeks. So we're in the middle of our season. I'm texting back at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I've learned that trick too. Hey, text people at 3 o'clock in the morning. All right. They can't answer you. Then you can't get in the text conversation. So if you get a text from me at 3 o'clock, it doesn't mean I don't want to hear from you, but it means maybe I'm busy and we'll figure it out. But hey, the contacts, it's amazing how your network grows and the more people, like the sink or swim of NIL. What was really cool this spring, I did 40 meetings from March when my team lost in the CIT championship, postseason tournament championship, until June 7th when we start our camps. All right, 40 meetings of 1 to 8 people sort of barnstorming, working on our NIL and telling my story in a small group setting. All right, it was a lot. That's supposed to be my off season.
Right.
And I'm recruiting in the transfer portal age, but what was amazing is I met so many people who've been watching what we've been doing. Maybe they hadn't been to a game. Maybe they've been to a handful of games. Maybe they've been to Indiana game like you had been. And they're like, how can I help? And next thing you know, we're building those relationships. Like Mike Thomas, realtor, jumps on board, you know, and now he's sitting right next to me on the courtside seats on the bench. And those relationships got like, you know, James Ball at Peter Franklin, who's a huge basketball fan. Like now he's doing like some custom bling for my parents who are coming back for Christmas, like through that. And like we're helping each other. He's like, hey, every one of those players is going to get married one day. Like there's just these cool stories how this synergy works out. So I could go on and on and on, but I love this city.
Oh, man.
And if anybody sees this, hey, reach out to me. 260-705-3980. That's my cell number.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
All right, boom. You can reach out to me.
You'll get a text back at 3 a.m.
Just do it at 3 o'clock so you don't have to like really talk to him. But John, seriously, I really think there's a lot more here that we can talk about. So would you come back another time?
I would love to.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for
John,
being here
appreciate it,
today.
man. It was
Great
awesome.
story. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And Fort Wayne's a
Appreciate
very welcoming town. I'm not a local either. Been here a long, long time now. But when you come here as an outsider, you feel welcome. You know, I mean, it's a great feeling.
Well,
Great
and
city.
I grew up in the South. And my wife is a Midwesterner. She's from Lima, Ohio. And so that was one of the attractions of moving back to this region. And it's been awesome. I mean, I feel sort of that, you know, I call it a Southern hospitality, but really it's a Midwestern.
Yeah.
I mean, Midwestern people are special. And nice part about the Midwest is you got winters. All right. And people may not think that, but when you're an indoor sport in the winter, like this is a basketball state.
Right.
I love it. I love coaching basketball in a basketball state. It's awesome.
I thought you said winter.
That's
No,
what
I
thought
did
too.
say winter.
Well, yeah.
I love winter. Hey, you
winter.
go. When I was coaching
winners.
Oh, winter.
We have those too.
Yeah, winners. I love winners too. I love winners and winters.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, we're going to bring you back another time. But thank you for
John,
being
thank
here.
you.
We
Yeah,
appreciate it a
appreciate
lot.
you guys having me on.